Welcome to the program. I'm Mark Imperial. This segment's being brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done and published to educate consumers, grow their businesses, and to leave a legacy. This is a series of spotlights on remarkable business intermediaries from across the country. Joining me on this segment is Margot Murphy. She's the founder of Sage Advisory Group. Margot, welcome to the program.
Mark, thank you.
Margot, tell us a little bit about your work, and specifically, who are the types of clients that you specialize in helping?
I work with owners of privately held companies, typically with revenues between 1 million and 25 million annual revenue. I'm very fond of supporting those owners that are founders of their companies. Possibly they've been working within their company, developing it, growing it, scaling it for 30, 35, 40 years. And they've gotten to a space in life where they want to put their toes in the sand. And I am their intermediary to help facilitate that. I'm excellent at marketing. I would say that's one of my stronger suits. Getting the opportunity out there. I work with a lot of retired CEOs who have a lot of cash on hand, have excellent experience within different industries, within business, and they want to move out of corporate life and run their own companies. I work with small equity funds that what they do is they specialize in buying up companies within certain industries, and they've already got extensive management in place operate those different companies. Yes.
So these founders, they're great at growing businesses and starting companies. How well prepared are they at selling their businesses? Tell us a little bit about them.
Well, there's a big dynamic associated with different type of sellers. Of course, I kind of liken what I do sometimes as a part-time psychologist. Not only are you dealing with the owner themselves, but the prospects that want to buy the business. There's a lot of different personalities to juggle around and keep feathers calm. But these sellers, many times, they're very successful. They make great money. They've got great little companies, great employee base, which is a great asset to what a company offers when it's for sale. But they've not done this before. So you need somebody like me to guide them, keep them confident, keep them calm, tell them the steps that are needed to undergo and reach the necessary outcome that they're looking to accomplish.
What are the most common reasons that they have to sell, and how do they know when's the right time to sell their company?
Good question. There's a variety of reasons, of course. Your death, divorce, any of that kind of thing can happen. But many of the folks that I work with are just burned out. They haven't given up on their business, and that's another thing I need to coach people on. They need to push it and push that revenue and not step back until the transfer is complete. Any prospect, any buyers don't want to see any decline in revenues or operational capacity of the company.
Yeah, I do want to talk a little bit about like preparing the business and how to make it look really saleable. But before that, let's talk about this economy, because we're coming out of a pandemic. People are probably wondering, is this a good time to sell a business? What's the opportunity like out there?
I'm finding right now in today's climate, first quarter 2022, there's a lot of cash out there, a lot of cash. We've got a lot of printed money floating around, and these businesses do very well. They'll have annual EBITDA anywhere from 750 to millions every year. And if you've got a seller who has been organized and legitimate in their operations, it's their company. They can do whatever they want. They pay their taxes, they do all of that. But those companies that are organized, have their financial house in order, are very attractive. There's a lot of activity out there. There's people like those different buyer prospect bases that I just described a minute ago. They're constantly searching for a great opportunity, and many of them like to take over those businesses that are founder owned and have been operationally managed and directed by that founder for decades.
Ideally, how far in advance should a business owner start preparing their business for sale? And what are the big things that they should start preparing?
That process should start a year or more prior. I'll give you an example. I've just taken on a new client out of Southern California. He is the founder of a 36-year-old structural steel fabrication and manufacturing company. He owns the real estate as well. He does about 15 million a year in revenues. They focus on the construction industry, so they fabricate and design and manufacture steel, pedestrian walkways over freeways, things like that. He is very decisive and clear-headed about being ready to move on from his company and pass the baton, so to speak. But his financials are under review with his CPA right now. I prefer to have reviewed financials, if at all possible. There's different levels of CPA reviewed of financials. They don't need to be audited necessarily. Reviewed are nice though. So we are, in this example, engaged with him maybe 6 weeks ago, and we're in the throes of tax season right now, so CPAs are very busy, and I'm not pushing, but I'm waiting for those reviewed financials, because without that, we can't pull the go on the active listing.
Margot, you mentioned that he owns his real estate. Can you talk a little bit about how does that real estate typically play out in the sale of a business?
Yes, thank you. The real estate is a big piece. If there's several different aspects of how this can come together. If an owner of a company leases the space, the operational space where the business takes place, that lease opportunity needs to be such in that it can be transferred or assigned to a new owner of the business, unless the owner of the business already has an operation in some other location in the country or some other local location near the business where they can fold those operations into what they have. That happens as well, and they can let that lease go. If the real estate where the operations take place is owned by the seller of the company, of course, that's a great attribute. We know that real property has had a lot of appreciation and has a lot of value in today's climate. It always has. Real estate's always been a great investment in my eyes. So if they own that real property, they can choose to retain ownership of the property, lease it back to the owner of the new building, and potentially even give first right of refusal to that business owner should they like to sell farther down the line. Or they can just outright sell the building. I'll give you another example, and this is a very tricky situation that I have going right now, and it might be difficult to sell this example that I'm going to give you. I've got a 50-year-old wine labeling, packaging, and cold storage company in Southern California. The seller owns 23,000 square foot refrigerated cold storage building that he runs the operation out of. He wants $5.5 million for it, listed at about $280 a foot, which is market. But operations for the cold storage wine business are held within that building. And the business itself is only about $500,000. It does okay revenues. It's got okay profit margin. And I've had a lot of interest in the business, but the first thing I have to tell folks interested in the business is the building will be sold. So that those operations will fall away. what are you going to do with the business? Can you fold it into something you have? Can you find another location, another cold storage location to lease? So all of those things play out and need to be looked at when you first engage a client.
Really terrific insights. I appreciate that. Margot, what inspired you to become a business intermediary and get in this field? How did you get started?
I've been a principal in professional advisory services my whole life. I also have a heavy construction background. I founded a construction company out in Micronesia in the early 1990s, which my middle son now runs. I was in real estate for many, many years, investing in real property, multifamily, that kind of thing. And about 8 years ago, when the whole decline in the real estate market, the bubble burst, I worked at REO for many years, representing mortgage servicers in selling their foreclosed properties. I was burned out on real estate and I thought, what? Okay, now, Margot, what are you going to do now? So I ventured into business brokerage and I've been working almost a decade now. And it's, I'm pretty good at it, I have to say, and I really enjoy it. It's a hard job. We get paid well for what we do. And the key is, the bottom line is, you have to sell what you bring into your engagement. And the fees are very worthwhile in the end. So, my goal these days is to find a client or clients who are decisive in their thinking, have made their decision, they're clear-headed. I've had clients before that are wishy-washy, they're not quite sure. And sometimes it takes a client years, maybe a decade, to really get their head wrapped around selling their company and moving on. Many of these owners are closer to their companies than they are even to their own families or their own children. And if they don't have a legacy or kids that want to, take over the operations, it's hard for a lot of sellers to swallow, and it may take them years to decide that. So it's a process for folks.
Margot, for folks listening that are considering selling their business and they really would love to speak with you, how can they find you, connect with you, and learn more?
Yes, and I'm happy to talk with people. I love brainstorming. If I can give any folks any kind of advice specifically suited to what they have going on, I love to do it. My website is sageadvisors.biz, B-I-Z, and my email is Margot, M-A-R-G-O-T, at sageadvisors.biz. You can Google Margot Murphy. And my phone number, my direct phone number, I love to get phone calls. You can just call me up, 949-630-5577, and I'm in Southern California.
Margot, this has been terrific. I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing with my audience today, and I wish you continued success for you and for all of your clients.
Thank you, Mark. I appreciate being here. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Margot Murphy, the founder of Sage Advisory Group. And this segment's been brought to you by booksgrowbusiness.com. It's the place where busy professionals get their books done to educate consumers, grow their businesses and practices, and leave a legacy. That's all for now. I'm Mark Imperial, and thanks for joining me.